everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Maven Capital Partners podcast Invested. My name is Laura Boyd, and I'm an entertainment reporter and presenter who's interviewed everyone from the likes of Harrison Ford to Lewis Capaldi and so many in between. This podcast is a bit different though, because here I'm chatting to the stars of the business world, the entrepreneurs and CEOs behind some of the UK's fastest growing companies. We find out about the highs and lows of their career, what makes them tick, and get their advice for those looking to follow suit. In this episode, we go closer to home. We chat to Bill Nixon, the managing partner at Maven Capital Partners. He has had a fascinating career. We hear how he went from Clydesdale Bank and Aberdeen Asset Management to launching his own business in 2009, just after the financial crash. He's gone on to sell it for £100 million. It's a truly inspirational story. And they say that fortune favours the brave. And my goodness, was Bill Nixon brave? Have a listen to this. Bill, thank you so much for joining me, taking the time out of your busy schedule in sunny Spain to chat to us today. How are you, first of all?
I'm very good, Laura. I think in these days of mobile working, it's now possible to spend part of your working week or part of your working month in Spain. So yes, I'm working from home in Spain today.
What a nice way to do it. Well, listen, Bill, you've got a fascinating story, but you're an Ayrshire lad at heart. So tell me a bit about growing up and what life was like when you were a wee boy.
As a wee boy, God, that seems like a lifetime ago. So I had a fairly kind of conventional Scottish state school upbringing. My father was also an entrepreneur, actually. He had various sales jobs, and then he started his own business in the 1970s. And he had several businesses. So I saw kind of like entrepreneurial activity and sales activity, and I guess how to deal with people and how to sell from a fairly young age. So that was very instructive in my life. And I knew from, I think, an early path that I wanted to do something, A, in business, B, in finance. And, that is the career path I've chosen. But, we moved around as part of that. We moved around quite a lot when I was young. We lived in Ayrshire, we lived near Aberdeen, and then eventually we settled in Ayr. And then when I got married in 1988, again, we stayed in Ayrshire when I was working at that time for Clydesdale Bank in Glasgow.
What were you like at school? Were you academic? Were you very into maths and the kind of business side of it? What were you like when you were back there?
I mean, I was the classic kind of eldest child, so I was pushed academically by my parents. And I was, I've still got my primary 4 report card showing first out of 41, which I was very proud of at the time. It kind of all went downhill after that. But I was very interested in English and numbers. I think, I'd say my standard of education, my secondary school education wasn't that great. But, I was still able to do well at school in classic terms, get some good hires. But I guess like many kids in the late 70s, early 80s, I was faced with, the prospect of going to work or going to university. And many, unless you were really going to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, very few people went to university. Mm-hmm. And if you're quite academic at school and did well, your main career choices at that time, you either typically went to work in a bank or you went to work for an insurance company. And I ended up going to work for a bank.
And did you enjoy that time in the bank?
Laura, it was an incredibly, it taught me a lot of discipline about the world of work, to get up in the morning, and to put on a shirt and tie and suit. And, and some of the young people I work with now, don't believe, the environment, that we worked in at that time, where, you had to wear a suit, you had to keep your hair short, you had to wear a tie, you could only wear a white shirt or a blue shirt.
Wow.
And you couldn't take your jacket off until all the customers had left the branch. So I started at the very bottom, classically as a tea boy. And I was, I would deliver the mail, do all the kind of like the very menial jobs. And then, as my wife continually reminds me, you're really just a bank teller at heart. I did that job, and then I learned about the international side of the business, foreign exchange, and then I went to work in corporate banking. So I then saw lending to businesses, and I started to get exposure to smaller corporates. That was when I was in my early mid-20s. But then in 1991, I got an opportunity to work in the bank's private equity business, which was very much seen as the sexy part of the business. At that time, I had no prior experience of, investment. There was some very bright young things in that team at the time. The bank would put its kind of best graduate trainees. So it was quite, I was quite pleased to get the opportunity at that time
Yeah.
to work in the private equity business. Very quickly, I realized that being involved in buying and selling companies and sitting on boards and influencing strategy, being involved in M&A was really incredibly exciting. And that was where I wanted my career to be. Finance is the kind of the product that we provide. We provide money. But then it's all about, helping to build a business, helping to build a management team, helping to determine strategy, helping the business to achieve its maximum return. And the byproduct of that, sometimes finance people are vilified. But if you look at the byproduct of that in terms of, the new products, the new technologies that are created, the jobs that are created, the tax dollars that are paid, it all helps keep the UK forefront of the global technology economy. It's a really positive and worthwhile thing to do. And at the same time, we try and make our investors money.
And when you decided that you were going to go it alone, that you were going to start your own business, tell me about taking those steps and how daunting, or was it daunting to do that?
Yeah, it was incredibly daunting because we did it at the time of the great financial crisis in 2008. And I often reflect on the fact that, we started Maven in the middle of a financial crisis in 2008, and we sold it in a financial crisis, or a crisis, if you like, arising from the pandemic in 2021. But, I found myself in a situation in 2008 where a team of just over 20 people. And, the financial crisis hit. Our business was very classically non-core to Aberdeen Asset Management. And Martin Gilbert, who was the group CEO, someone I think we all admire and still admire, he approached me and he said, "Look, your business is non-core. We can either sell it and you can go with that as part of the deal, or you can buy it." And I said, "Well, I want to buy it." And at that point, I was in my mid-40s at that time. And at that point, I'd saved a bit of money. So I had a young family, but it wasn't quite as daunting a step financially. I had a bit of financial backing behind me. And, we decided, well, we back all these entrepreneurs, with our clients' money. We must have the wherewithal to do it ourselves. So in 2009, we completed the buyout and we started the Maven business.
Which is just incredible. How important was the support of your family in that and taking that risk? And, your wife, and as you say, you've got young children. That must have been quite frightening because I guess you're changing everything. You're putting all your eggs in that basket.
You're absolutely right. And a few people, I know a few people privately kind of raise their eyebrows, why are you leaving a good job with the security of a PLC and starting this new little business at the worst possible time? I've been very lucky in that my family have been incredibly supportive and low maintenance. And, I've been able to, focus on the business. They supported me, both my wife and my kids supported me, and have allowed me to focus on the business, over the last 15 years now.
And the business has, in the past few years, been through a big change. So, what was that like to decide to sell it? And have you been able to step away any? I mean, I know you're still very heavily involved, but handing over your baby, I can imagine, is also terrifying.
That's a really good point, because even when you're no longer the owner, you're still the biological owner in a sense, and it is your baby, and it's a business that, it's not just me, but others, myself and others, and I've had some great support for some colleagues who've done, fantastic things. We have done some fantastic things working together to create, a business that I think is pretty much a household name in UK finance today. But yeah, selling a business, was also quite daunting. But nothing is forever. No one lives forever, and there is a time. Maven is not the sort of business that lends itself to family succession. It's a business full of professional people at different stages in their career. And I had the choice to, hand over the business and retire, but there was too much value to give that away. And also, I think, Laura, at the time we sold it, it was becoming increasingly clear that although we'd done very well to get to where we had got to, having the support of a parent for access to a whole bunch of other things, not only support functions, but also access to capital, access to distribution to their client base, that was incredibly important, at a time when the market was becoming more congested, and it was important to partner with a larger business. So that's what we did in 2021. Now, I've continued to run the Maven business. I've continued to run the Maven business. I've got a very good relationship, with the buyer. It's a fairly light touch. I present to the PLC board once a month our results. But other than that, they really leave me to get on with it. So it's the best of both worlds. The day-to-day operations of the business haven't been affected, but we still have this support of a larger parent.
And do you think you will be able to ever fully step away? And will you ever fully retire from business, like completely? Or do you think that's always in you?
That's a great question, and it's one I ask myself almost every day. I love business, and I think of the people that I work with as my second family. And I love the deals, and when it goes well, investors do really well, make good money, and it's the mental stimulation as well. You're involved in a whole bunch of different situations and sectors, learning about new sectors, learning about new technologies. So I actually don't, other than, news, current affairs, I don't actually need to read that much, because I'm reading constantly and learning about, developments in the world of, technology in particular, which we see a lot of. Yeah. So to answer your question, no, I don't think I'll ever be able to. I don't want to be the chief exec at 80. I do want to do a lot less in the coming years, but I'm still enjoying the role.
You mentioned succession there. I often wonder, I know in my industry, watching programs about, the morning show and stuff about kind of news and TV, it's almost like a busman's holiday, but I'm fascinated by it. Do you enjoy watching Succession and the programs that are about business and that you can see touches of your business in? Is that something that you do, or do you completely switch off with something different?
Are you talking about Succession, the program, rather than Succession within Maven?
Yes, Succession, the program.
I think it's very obvious who the Succession, program is about, without saying who it's based on. I think that's dramatized, really for TV. I think there are kind of flashpoints in business. I mean, bear in mind, we're dealing with, some pretty emotional things in terms of, we're dealing with, management teams, careers, jobs, money of the businesses we back. They can do very well or not very well in some cases. And that can stimulate strong emotions. But I wouldn't say we were like Succession. I think we're a bit of a kind of watered down version of that.
Like that. Well, so no Succession watching then to switch off to. How do you switch off, Bill? What do you enjoy doing?
Well, I live and breathe the job, Laura. But I'm fortunate enough to have a home in Spain where I work a few days each month. But in addition to that, I'm still lucky enough to be quite active sports-wise. I play paddle tennis, I ski, and I play golf. So, and I'm a member of a few nice golf clubs. So when I get some time away from the desk, that's my downtime. Although I have to say I'm terrible for walking around the golf course doing emails.
Well, I was going to say that. Are you able to put the phone away, or are you
no,
still
no,
constantly?
no. I'm terrible for that. And it's actually quite antisocial. But sometimes, because of the volume of email traffic that you get in a business like ours, and sometimes quick decisions are required. You can't just in the middle of if you're playing in golf with a client, say, or an advisor on a Thursday afternoon, you've got to just keep one eye to your phone, unfortunately.
Gosh, never able to switch off. What about you've become a grandfather, haven't you? Has that changed?
It's, I suppose it's softened me a bit. I'm absolutely delighted to become a grandfather. Little Ingrid was born 22 months ago. Sadly, she lives in Australia. But her mother, my eldest daughter, her mother spends large spells in the UK, so she spent 2 7-week spells living with us in the UK. So that makes it a bit easier. But when they have to go back to Australia, it's tears before bedtime, unfortunately.
Great thing. Well, maybe when you take another step away, you can spend more time in Australia. That would be nice. And also, I know you're a big football fan as well.
Yeah, I mean, just on the Australia thing, I mean, now with modern communications, when I'm in Australia and I go once or twice a year to see her,
Yeah.
The UK working day effectively starts. She lives in Victoria near Melbourne. The UK working day starts about 4 p.m. So you can have the day, and then you can stay online between 4 p.m. and midnight or so. So it's not perfect, but you can still stay in real time, even in Australia.
Yeah. So she knows that face well. It's a face on FaceTime a lot.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Listen, FaceTime's a great thing. It's a great thing, and it does actually help the separation. When you can.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was a young man getting my first ever mobile phone call from Australia and being absolutely, blown away by it. And now, nobody thinks twice about, flicking a FaceTime call to somebody on the other side of the world.
Yeah. I know. No, it's fantastic. Thank goodness we have got that. Things have changed so much. Yeah, I mentioned the football there. You're an avid football fan. Do you manage to get along to that and switch off there? Surely you can't be checking emails when you're watching your team win or lose sometimes.
If you work and live in Glasgow, you've got to be careful what you say. Fortunately, I no longer live in Glasgow. I now live near London. So I'm lucky enough to, I get to go to a few games in Scotland, also, a few games in, near London.
Yeah, so you love that side of it. Well, we speak a lot on this podcast to people who are at the other side of the business from you. They're kind of starting out or they're just kind of growing their companies. I know it's difficult to give kind of one piece of advice, but what would you say to someone in that boat? Like, to keep going, or how do you inspire that generation?
It's a great question, and we do try to help, genuinely young people, get there. We've always taken internships. We help young people come in and, learn the Maven business. We had an initiative called the Maven Academy a few years ago where, In Glasgow, we had 6 kids come in and work with us from underprivileged areas, over several years. They did several blocks of work. I think a couple of things. When someone is coming for an interview, you always detect there's always a degree of nervousness, and if I'm interviewing a young person that's intimidated by that, I always say, look, it's quite normal to be nervous, sit down, relax, like talk about football, or talk about the weather. And when you're ready to talk about, your business, your career aspirations, we'll do that, and I think that's a good way to kind of break the ice. But I think when young people join us, they get some fantastic experience now because the breadth of projects that we work on, the breadth of client funds, the different companies we're involved in. But I always say, what I hate is most of all in business is organizational dysfunctionality, where people play political games, and it's not something I tolerate really within Maven. I want people to, if there's any conflict, we need to get it out of the way and resolve it as quickly as we can. And there's always occasional flashes of conflict, but I think I'm proud that at Maven it's not that type of highly political business. But what I would say to somebody is, and all I ask for everyone who works for our business is hard work and loyalty. Go the extra mile, be loyal, and you'll be recognised. And if you do that, I'll do my very best to help your career progression.
Wise words, Bill, very wise words. But who has been your biggest inspiration in your career?
Well, my dad certainly helped initially to give me that, as I said earlier, give me that kind of like first exposure to the business and how to deal with people. But I think it's been a progression of managers that I've worked with over the years. I can't point to one single individual. I've always been a self-starter, but I guess I would say I've learned as much from the bad people I've worked with, or the less effective managers, than the good people. I think, the people who I've seen mistreat others, you think, well, I don't like that. That's not how I'm going to behave. Sometimes, business is tough. Sometimes you need to have difficult conversations. But, you always treat people with respect and you never mistreat them. And, and I have seen that in the past. And I think it's important to be firm. It's important to have an edge, but it's also important to be fair.
And what would you say is your biggest achievement? I mean, you have achieved so much, but is there like a standout moment that you can pick out?
A standout moment? Not really. I mean, people say success is not an overnight thing, Laura. And I think fortunately most Scots are quite grounded. We've created a really great business, but it's been a team game. I want to stress that. It's been a team game, and many people have helped. But it's been small incremental gains every year. New funds, new products, new offices, expansion. There has not been one standout moment. Perhaps in the early days of Maven, we secured a very big mandate with the Scottish Government. It was at that time, was quite transformational for us. That was the biggest step we had taken in one go. But every year since then, the business has grown, our assets have grown, our portfolio's grown, our team has grown to, approaching 120 people now. So no, I can't point to one particular factor. It's just been a series of growth events over 15 years.
A lot of things to be proud of. Bill, what do you think your friends and family would say if I asked them to describe you? How do you think they would describe you?
A grumpy workaholic. I don't know. I think they would say I was. I would definitely a workaholic. I mean, I do email from 7 o'clock in the morning till I shut my eyes at night. But I'd like to think they would say I was firm but fair. and I think that's how any senior manager should be. Hopefully, I've done enough to earn the team's respect. But I think I do quite a bit of reading on management. If your colleagues fear you, you've failed. They should respect you. They should not admire you, but they should respect what you've achieved, and they should recognize that there is a line to be drawn at times in terms of, standards of output and behavior, but they should never fear you. If people fear you as a manager, then, you've gone too far.
Yeah. No, completely. And is there someone in business or a particular business that you admire?
I mean, all the classic stuff. I mean, Steve Jobs and, people who've created, large tech empires over the last 20 or 30 years, people like Bill Gates, who've been totally transformational in the sectors, that they've disrupted the sectors that they work in. But, I admire many of the companies and the tech companies that we've backed, that we had when we set up Maven, we had a clear plan to grow, our fund management business. But sometimes the type of companies we back, the technology can change, the market can change. So I admire a lot of the young tech entrepreneurs that we back that often pivot what they do and are still successful.
Yeah, there's some amazing ones out there and some amazing growing ones as well. That's what's been really nice doing this podcast, is hearing about these brilliant businesses that Maven are supporting, but that are on the way up. And that's really inspiring to hear. Finally, Bill, I know you're not retiring quite yet, although you have got the swim shorts on under that shirt. So there's a bit of relaxation.
You weren't supposed to disclose that.
It's good, so we should get a shot of them. But is there anything you would still like to do or still like to achieve?
No, I mean, I love to travel. I love to travel and visit loads of different countries. So I've got a few things in my to-do list. I'd like to spend more time with my family in Australia. I'd like to do that. Those are the kind of the main objectives. I'd like to stay fit and healthy and continue to work in some capacity for the foreseeable future. That's my near-term life plan.
I think it sounds like a great one.
I'd like to get a hole-in-one at golf. That's what I'd like to do. I haven't done that yet.
Have you ever had one?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Right. That's a good goal. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Bill, it has been an absolute treat to chat to you. It's fascinating, and Maven's success is just a brilliant story to hear, and I'm sure really inspirational for a lot of people. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get to the pool or the golf course or whatever you're up to.
Sadly, it's email time now, but
email time. Of course. Listen, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks, Bill.
All the best, Laura. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you so much to the very brilliant Bill Nixon for chatting to us there. I'm sure he is an inspiration to many aspiring entrepreneurs. And if you want to hear more like that, then don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our podcast or visit mavencp.com for more. I'll see you next time.